On page Samach Aleph, which is opposite of page 120. And we're holding on the top line of the page V'oid Zos Yiskar. So the topic of this Perek is Yiras Hashem and how to arrive at Yiras Hashem. So in the beginning of the Perek, the Alter Rebbe talks about the idea that Moshe demanded of all the Yidden that they should have Yiras Hashem. Ma Hashem alekecha sheil me'imach ki'im liyiras Hashem alekecha. And even though that it seems that Yira is not a small thing, how is that Moshe was, so to say, making light of it? So the Alter Rebbe said that's because Moshe was saying that due to your connection to me and due to the unika of your neshama from my neshama, well, Moshe's neshama represents the idea of das. So due to the capacity of das, which every single Yid has, and gets in the neshama, gets in his or her neshama from Moshe Rabbeinu, so due to that capacity of das, so therefore, Taka Yira is a Milsa Zutrisa, Yira is not a big deal. Because if you can truly connect to Hashem with your Das, and as we discussed at length in the previous year, and what that means to connect with Hashem, with one's Das, which means to be Mizboinen, to contemplate Hashem's greatness, until it becomes something which is real and practical, and something that you can relate to. Once you have Das, Das means connection. V'adam yadas chava. Once a person has Das, then Yiras Hashem is something which is not so difficult. Incidentally, we're talking here about Sukkot. This is actually very much related to Sukkot, because Sukkot is related to Das. So Sukkot, the Pasuk says that the reason why we sit in the Sukkah is Laman Yedu Derisechem, that we should have the idea of Das. And then we come to Shmini Atzeres Simchas Torah, and how do we begin the whole Hakafis with Ata Haresa Ladas. So we see that the whole idea of the Yom Tov and the Yom Tovim of Sukkot Simchas Torah, which we just came from, is connected to the idea of Das. And Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, we connect to very high levels of our neshama. We're in a very, very elated state. We're in a spiritual high, but sometimes that could remain abstract, it could remain in theory. So as long as we're in shul, and we're in a kittel, if you're an Ashkenazi, or whatever it is, and you're fasting, and you're davening, so then you're feeling in a very high spiritual state. But in order to be able to take that feelings which we had on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and to translate it into the entire year, that requires Das. Das means really, really connecting with that which we've achieved and accomplished, the spiritual places that we've been in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And that's why on Sukkot is not about going to shul and davening and putting on a kittel. What is the mitzvah of Sukkah? It's a very interesting mitzvah. How do you do the mitzvah of Sukkah? Teishu ke'ein tadura. You sit down, you have a bite to eat, you have a coffee, you learn a little, you rest a little. Whatever you're doing, it's your own life. You learn a little. Okay, I didn't say learn a little because that already is a mitzvah. I'm saying even those aspects of your life, which normally are mundane, they all become halik, which is the opposite of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, we move away from everything from our life. We stay in shul and we don't, we don't eat, we don't drink, we don't do any of these things. And Sukkot is the opposite, and that's the idea of Das, because when we connect to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we're trying to take it with us for the entire year. So according to Kabbalah, actually, the sukkah which encompasses us, it surrounds us, is the idea of Bina. In Kabbalah, the sukkah is referred to as Makifim de Bina, the Makif of Bina. So in this sukkah, you have an incredible Gili revelation of Hashem's Bina. Now Bina is called Makif, and Makif is the opposite of Das. Das means when you connect to something. A Makif is something which is, in theory, it's abstract, it surrounds you. It's like, for example, what we've spoken in the past about a person has emunah in Hashem, belief in Hashem, but it could be something which is abstract and doesn't have an actual impact on their everyday and daily life. So Bina means that which I understand could be a makif. I can understand something, I can have bina, I could fully understand something, I could fully, for example, understand that Hashem is the master of the world and He's the one who gives me my sustenance, and yet at the same time I can go on business and be unethical and steal from someone. How does that work? How does that work? I know that the Eibishter is the one who gives me my parnasa. I know Hashem is not going to give me more parnasa if I go against what it says in the Torah, but that's because that which I understand, the bina that I have, remains makif. It hasn't really, I haven't absorbed the idea. I haven't become one with that idea yet. So the sukkah represents the idea of bina. And then what we do is, we take the lulav and the esrog, and the lulav and the esrog, we're supposed to take it, the mitzvah min hamufcha, the best way to do the mitzvah is in the sukkah. And what we're doing is, we take it and we do it to every direction and we bring it to our heart. We're being mamshich, we're bringing those high levels of godliness, which is present in the sukkah, which we got from Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and we're bringing it bepnimius, so it should be in a way of das. We're truly connecting to it.
I remember in Israel, we used to get up 4 o'clock in the morning, people walking the street to the shul with the lulav and etrog, and everybody in the Perov Amatat Melech, they're making the mitzvah in the sukkah at 5 o'clock.
Right.
5:30. It's beautiful. Hundreds of people.
Right. And the idea, but that's the idea. The idea is the whole package mitzvah of sukkah, lulav and esrog is to take these high levels of bina and bring them in, make them bepnimius, bring them in das. The Rebbe points out actually that there are 3 mitzvahs that are, I believe it's the Bach who says this originally, that are intrinsically connected to their kavanah. We know we're supposed to have kavanah every single time you do a mitzvah, but there are 3 mitzvahs where the kavanah is an integral part of the mitzvah. One of them is tefillin, and that's why the whole halal, the whole sif and shulchan aruch, yikavein, b'hanachasi, the kavanah you're supposed to have when you put on tefillin. You don't have a shulchan aruch halacha to kavanah when you til yadayim, the kavanah when you're making an erev on Shabbos, right? But in shulchan aruch it's very clear the kavanah you have to have because the Torah says it's supposed to bring about the zikaron, it's supposed to cause you to remember. And the same thing is tzitzis also. The idea of the idea that the purpose of tzitzis is that when you see them, you're supposed to remember the mitzvah. So that is an integral part of the mitzvah. The kavanah is an integral part of the mitzvah. Again, although every mitzvah you have to have kavanah, and there are even opinions that hold that mitzvah strichas kavanah leikuvan, that if you didn't have kavanah, then you weren't yotze to the mitzvah. That doesn't mean that the kavanah is an integral part of the mitzvah. That means it's a tanai, that's ma'akiv. It's a tanai in the mitzvah that if you don't do it, you weren't yotze. But the 3 mitzvahs where it's a part of the mitzvah, the one is tefillin, and one is tzitzis, and the other one is sukkah.
What about Kriya Shema?
Kriya Shema is different, because that's part of the essence of the mitzvah is kavanah. We're not talking about tefillah, and we're talking about mitzvahs maisis. We're not talking about mitzvahs that are connected with avodah shabalev. And then there's sukkah. We're also in Shulchan Aruch. It's very clear in the very first siman of Hilchos Sukkah. It talks about that when you sit in the sukkah, you have to have the kavanah. That b'sukkah is heshafti is b'nei Yisrael.
That's why we say ulu shpizin when you enter the sukkah.
It's a different nekuda. But when you're sitting in the sukkah, again, according to certain days, if you don't have in mind the kavanah of the manyedu deresechem, you weren't yotza the mitzvah because it's an integral part of the mitzvah. And the Rebbe points out that of these 3 mitzvahs, by tefillin and by tzitzis, it says the word zechira. It says v'hoyu l'zikaren, and u'zachartem, it means to remember. So when you're wearing tefillin, you have to remember. When you're putting on tzitzis or talis, you have to remember. Only by sukkah it doesn't say leman tizkuru. It doesn't say leman tizkuru that what happened? Leman tedu. Leman yedu. That idea of das. The strongest mitzvah connected to das is the mitzvah of sukkah. And that's really mamish the nekuda we're talking about here in the Perek, that the way to arrive at Yiras Hashem in our everyday life is through das, is through arriving at das. So how does one arrive at das? As the Rebbe mentions, when you think into the greatness of Hashem, as discussed at length in the previous prakim. And then, a little while ago, around 2 shiurim ago, we brought up there's an issue. The issue is, you want me to think into the greatness of Hashem and thereby to awaken within myself, thereby to have das and thereby to awaken within myself. Yiras Hashem, but there's a problem. The problem is that Hashem is abstract. Hashem is abstract. He doesn't have a body. He doesn't have eyes to see even. So how am I supposed to fear something which is so abstract? So Alter Rebbe said, and this we talked about last year and 2 shiurim ago, that the fact that Hashem doesn't have a physical eye, or that Hashem doesn't have a physical body and doesn't perceive with physical senses, that's not a problem. In fact, how does Hashem know what's going on, as we discussed last time? So how is Hashem aware of everything we're doing? He's aware, b'yedias atzmai, just like as we discussed last time, if you have a headache, you're aware of it without your eyes, without your ears. You're aware about it because you're aware of you're intimately aware of everything that's going on within yourself. You don't need senses to tell you that which is going on outside of you. The same thing, Hashem's knowledge of everything is, as the Rambam says, is b'yedias atzmai. He knows everything that's going on in creation because He knows Himself, and because we are all merely extensions of Him, and we're constantly being recreated by Him and receiving our existence and our life from Him. So therefore, He automatically knows everything that's going on with us simply by the fact that He knows Himself. So the fact that Hashem doesn't have eyes and doesn't have physical senses, that doesn't mean that Hashem's knowledge of us is any less. To the contrary, Hashem's knowledge of us is even greater. So still, we can have this das and we can have this yiras Hashem, this fear of Hashem, because Hashem is aware of everything that we're doing, even though Hashem doesn't have physical eyes and physical senses. That's very good. So Hashem sees us, but we still don't see Hashem. That's the next hurdle we have to cross. How do I fear something that I can't see?
Can you imagine?
I can't imagine because there's nothing what to imagine. Anything that I can imagine is within the parameters of of creation. And Hashem is above and beyond creation. I can't imagine Him. I can't see Him.
He's infinite.
It's something which is so abstract and so theoretical. I could learn about Him, I could think about Him, but if I can't see Him, the human nature is that I fear something which I can see.
Mm-hmm.
Something which I can't see, I don't fear.
Can't perceive Him.
Something which is not seeable, what?
Can't perceive
Right.
Him.
So how is it that? So how is that not an impediment to having yiras Hashem? Even though that I'll try to develop das, and I'll try to think about the greatness of Hashem, and I'll try to think about the ayin reya and the izin shemas, and how Hashem is watching and Hashem is listening, and all that is true, but at the end of the day, it's not something that I can see. How can I fear something that I can't see? And that's what Dr. Rebbe is going to address now, inside page Samach Aleph, top line. Moreover, one should remember, when we're talking about a king of flesh and blood, a human king, so as discussed in the past, we don't really so much understand this idea of fearing a king, because that's something also that we don't have in our experience. I think I might have mentioned in the past that when by the Russian Revolution in 1917, when they overthrew the Tsar, so there was a chassid who was lamenting, and he said, "What are you lamenting? That the Tsars were just horrible, terrible anti-Semites." Okay, they didn't know that even worse was to come. But Yidden weren't, for the most part, Yidden weren't very sad to see the Tsar and the Tsars go. So he said, "Yeah, but now that there is no Tsar, we lost our mashal for Malchus." We learn in Chassidus, and you learn about the Eibishter being our Melech, and Midas HaMalchus. You wanted to say, you fear a Melech, that's how you fear Hashem. And now we don't have that anymore, because when you live in a society which is a democratic society, or even a communist society, the way communism originally was supposed to be. The communism was not envisioned as an absolute tyrannical dictatorship. So there's no one person whom Lepoelo turned out it was. You had Stalin, you had these people. But I'm saying the way communism was envisioned, it's about equality for everyone. And certainly in America here, who fears the president? And
He's young.
what? fears the right? Right? And just today, so I heard in the news that the federal court, a judge somewhere stopped one of President Trump's immigration executive order that he gave. So today the president says one thing, someone else says something else. We don't have a king, we don't have a melech. But in the time when there was a melech taka, people understood what it means to have fear of the king. It was emesa ema, emesa yira, emesa fear of the king. But what is the fear of the king? Is it of his body? Do you fear the king's body? No. You fear his neshama, or whatever you want to call it, the inside, the pnimius, the spiritual element of the person. You don't fear the king's body. What's the proof that you don't fear the king's body? If you were to be standing near the king when he slept, you wouldn't have any fear from him. Now you probably would have fear from him, but why would you have fear from him? Because you'd be worried that any second he can wake up. But in other words, if you were to know that he's not waking up, or if you were to know that then there's nothing to fear. His body is lying right there. Why aren't you trembling? Because he's sleeping. And I don't fear the body. I fear what's inside. And when the person and that which is inside the neshama, when the person is sleeping, is not expressed, is not manifest. So you don't fear the king's body. You fear what's inside. 1 second. How does that work? You can't see the pnimius of the king. You don't see the neshama of the king. So what are you fearful of? Now, the we just established as a principle, as an axiom. What did we establish? That you don't fear that which you can't see. But we see that that's not necessarily true. That when you're fearing a king, you're really fearing something that you can't see. Can you see a difference between when the king is sleeping, when the king isn't sleeping? The eyes can't see a difference. The king looks the exact same. Now you fear him, now you don't fear him. So obviously you're fearing something which is intangible and something which cannot be perceived by the eye, because that which is the pnimius of the king can't be seen. Rak be'eni aseichel. The king, the inside of the king, the pnimius of the king, the neshama of the king, is only grasped through one seichel. In other words, that one knows when you see the king and when you see he's up. So even though you can't see the chayis of the king, but your mind grasps that. However, it's ayidei re'iyas einei basar. It is through that which the eye sees. Begufay, you see the body of the king. Ulevushav, and you see the garments of the king. Sheyedeya, and you know shechayusei melubash b'toicham. And you know that the king's chayis is within. I'm saying a very important idea, which is, it is true that I don't fear something which my eye can't see. That is true. But sometimes I don't need to see it itself. I can see something else, and that thing which I see indicates to me that there is something else which I will fear. So when I'm looking at the king, I see the physical body, and I tremble. But am I trembling from the physical body? No, I'm trembling from the chayis of the king, the neshama of the king. But what causes me to tremble? Seeing the body. So sometimes when you see something physical, that which is an outcome of something spiritual, so yes, it's true that I don't fear unless I see. But I don't have to see the thing itself. I can also see the outcome of that thing.
But you have a tangible thing to see. But Kodesh Baruch Hu, you have nothing to start with.
That's what we have to get. The question is there something that we can see which leads us to fear of Hashem? That's where we're going to go.
Oh, I see. Going back from yesterday. What? Okay.
You're going through the rainstorm.
If you go into tremendous rainstorm, okay? There you go. And you say, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam, shekoichei gvorasei mali ha'olam. So what are you really saying? You're saying, I'm seeing thunder, but who do I fear? I fear Hashem. You're seeing, and that's the point that Alter Rebbe is going to lead to. But first, let's just develop this idea a little. That a lot of times, yes, I can't fear something that I can't see, but sometimes when you see something, so for example, if you're in a room with someone and you see that the person has red things, dots all over themselves, whether it's measles or chicken pox, so suddenly you get all scared. Do you see the measles? Do you see the chicken pox? No, that red welt that you're seeing is only, is it, what?
I've seen it.
It's sorry?
I've seen it in my life.
You've seen it, right? It's a symptom, it's a result. And yet you're very fearful because again, when you look at that, what do you see? You're seeing chicken pox.
It ain't pretty.
And it's contagious.
Just like when you're looking at, right, when you're looking at the king, you see the king, even though the part which you fear you can't see, but when you look at the king, that's what you're seeing. Sometimes what happens is the body becomes transparent. When you're looking at the king and you see the king and you're seeing his body and you start trembling, is because the body is transparent. You're not really seeing the body of the king. What you're seeing is the deeper dimension of the king, which you can't see. You're seeing it through the body. The pneumius. When you look at any electrical appliance, can you see electricity? You can't see electricity. And yet, if someone were to tell you, well, electricity is an abstract, theoretical thing, how can you really connect it and relate to it and be certain about it? No. When you turn on the light and the light goes on, you see electricity. No, you're not seeing electricity, but it's as if you're seeing it. So sometimes when you see physically one thing, and that leads you directly to understanding of something else. That's the nature of things. It's what you see in something. It's what you see in something. It's when you disconnect the two. That's when you get. There's a famous joke / story, a folk tale that's said about a person. There was a poor person who he traveled from city to city collecting money. He once came to the city and there was a very wealthy person over there. And this wealthy person was an incredible machnas eirach, and he had a minhag that he would invite many poor people to his house. And every time at the end of the meal, before the meal ended, he would turn to every one of the poor people who were around the table and he would say, you see around me of a room, there's so many different things around here. There's farnim and there's household utensils. Any one item that you want, you can take. And there's some things there that are quite valuable, but that was his minhag. That was his way of chnasas archim and tzedakah. Anyways, this wealthy person, he had sitting on the table next to him, he had a little bell. And every time when they would have the meals would be multi-course meals. So whenever he was ready for the next course to be served, he would pick up the bell and give a shackle, a ring, and immediately the servants would come in with the next course. It was a simple bell, a simple piece of tin. So there's one day this poor person comes to this rich person's house, and when the time comes and the rich person says, anything you want, he says, I want that bell. Rich says, are you sure? That's what he wants? Okay, sure, take it. I got another bell. Say that. He took the bell, he went home to his house, and he told his wife, all our tzaras are finished. That's it. All our problems are gone. Sit down, we're having supper. What do you mean we're having supper? I didn't prepare it. You have to see what I have over here. You sit down, set the table with plates, and we're going to have supper. And the wife sits down, and all the kids sit down, and the guy with the big smile pulls the bell out of his pocket and gives it a little shake. And he's waiting for all the servants to come in with the food. He shakes it again, and it's a mashal. It's a famous mashal that's brought down, and there are many different ways to go with the nimshal when you disconnect. But I'd say it about whatever. Every time we work, we're shaking a bell. The Eibishter brings in all the stuff. In other words, so really, it's the davening and it's the learning and it's the mitzvahs. There are many different ways to take the story, but one of them is that you have to be smart when you see something and that leads to something else. Sometimes, to him, he looked at the bell and he saw the servants. It was all one thing to him. And the point over here also is that sometimes you see one thing, but you're not seeing the thing itself. You're seeing what caused it. You're seeing what caused it. It says the Alter Rebbe, "Ve'im kein kach hamamish," in the exact same way. Yes, the liras Hashem, we have to fear Hashem. Al yidei riyas einayim. Because our eyes, through us, through the fact that we see with our physical eyes, we see the heavens and the earth and all that's in them, and the light of Hashem, the energy of Hashem is within the heavens and the earth, within everything, to give them life and to give them energy. The Medrash says, actually the Mishnah and Avis Rab Nassim, it says that Hanashama memalos haguf, just like the neshama fills the guf, Afa Kadosh Baruch Hu memale es kol ha'olam. Hashem also fills the entire world on a very simple level. Just like when you look at a person, can you see the person's life force? And the neshama, you can't see it. But when you see the person moving a hand this way, when you see the person talking, when you see the person thinking, whatever you see, you know that there's a life force, even though you can't see it. To the extent that when you look at the person, what do you see? You're seeing the life force. And when Rahman al-Islam, after 120, when the life force goes away, we take the body and we bury it. And we make eulogies. We talk about how the person was this and the person was that and the person was the other. What do you mean he was? See, the person's right there in the box. What do you mean was? Why are you saying was? But even when a person's alive, when you look at the person, and even though you're seeing the body, you're not really seeing the body. When you're talking about the person, you're talking about the life force. The same thing is also, we have to understand that the Eibishter, just like a neshama, a life force is the life force of a body and fills the entire body. Hashem is the life force that fills the entire world. So just like you could go look at a guf and see the neshama, which is the point we're getting to, you fear the king even though you can't see the life force, but you see the body of the king and that immediately you see it. We can look at the world around us and see Hashem. And thereby fear Hashem. So the original question was, how can we fear something that we don't see? How can we fear Hashem who we don't see? And the answer is, if there's something that you can't see at all, you can't fear it, but you can't fear that entity which you can't see. But if you see the effects of it everywhere, then you can look at the effects and you can actually fear the cause of those effects. And that's what Dr. Rebbe is challenging us to do as we'll go on further. Is when we look at the world around us, to see Hashem in everything and everywhere. And we'll talk about this a little more as we go on, but first let's turn to the footnote. The footnote Dr. Rebbe is going to say there's another point. Right now we're saying that there's a possibility to be able to look around the world, whatever you see, the heaven, the earth, anything, you see Hashem. It's just a matter of getting yourself used to seeing everything in that way. And then there's another point. V'gam, this is in the small letters on the side. V'gam, and also, nira b're'iyas ha'ayin, we could see with the physical eye, shehim b'telim lo'iri yizbarach, that all the heavenly hosts, the sun, the moon, etc., they're completely nullified and bottled to Hashem, b'ishtachavasam kol yom klapi ma'ariv, because every single day they're busy bowing to the west side. K'mayim razal, as the Chazal tell us, al pasuk utzva shemayim l'cham mishtachvim. Chazal tell us, and the pasuk which we say every day in davening, we say utzva shemayim, the hosts of heaven l'cham mishtachvim, are bowing down to you. Chazal say shashchina b'ma'ariv. We know as a rule the shchina in general is on the ma'ariv side. That's why in the Beis Hamikdash the Kodesh HaKadoshim was on the ma'ariv side. we daven facing Mizrach because that's the direction of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So for us, we're facing that way. But where is the Shekhinah? It's in the ma'ariv side, which is where the Kodesh HaKadoshim was. And all the heavenly hosts, the entire day, what are they doing? They're busy bowing. They're not going straight. They're going on an angle. So they're busy bowing down to the Shekhinah. V'nimtza, it turns out hilucham kol hayom klapi ma'ariv. They're going the entire day towards the ma'ariv side. Hu derech hishtachavo bittul is their way of bowing down and expressing their bittul to Hashem. The Tzemach Tzedek explains. It's interesting that we know that in Sefer Yeshua, you have described the battle that Yeshua made against in Givon, when Yeshua told the sun to stand still.
שמש בגבעון דום וירח בעמק איילון.
There you go. Shemesh begivoin doim. So what does Shemesh begivoin doim mean? You speak Hebrew. What does that mean? Shemesh begivoin doim. What does that mean?
The sun in Giv'on stops.
Stop.
Doim means to stop.
Yeah.
What does doim mean?
Dome is domem. Quiet.
Be quiet. Right? So although we know that in the simple pshat it means that he told him to stop, but Chazal tell us, it's also brought down in Rashi, that what he actually told them was, be quiet. Shemesh begivoin, be quiet. Stop saying Shira to Hashem. Take a pause from saying Shira to Hashem. So the Tzemach Tzedek, he says, both of these interpretations are obviously they're both correct, but they're connected one to another. Why does the sun move? Because the sun is constantly saying Shira to Hashem. And the Shira expresses its bittul to Hashem. Expresses its commitment, its devotion, its nullification to Hashem. So as long as it's saying Shira, when we say the sun is saying Shira, we mean the neshama of the sun. We don't mean the goof of the sun, the body of the sun. So as long as the neshama of the sun is saying Shira, the body expresses that bittul to Hashem by moving towards the Ma'ariv side, by moving towards the Shechina, and by bowing down to the Shechina. So when Yeshua told him, stop saying Shira, automatically the sun stopped. Because the movement of the sun is a manifestation, an expression of the Shira, which is its bittul to Hashem. So what we have over here is that all the heavenly bodies, and they're moving towards the west, is an expression of their incredible bittul.
What about the Yarech? Yarech בעמק איילון. What that's...
The same idea. He says the Shema should be quiet in Givayim, and the moon should be quiet in the valley of Ayalon. Yeah. Someone who never saw the king, and doesn't recognize him at all. When he goes into the courtyard of the king, and sees so many distinguished ministers, even if he doesn't see the king himself, he goes only to the Chatzar, to the courtyard. He doesn't go into the inside. He's standing in the courtyard, and all these incredible dignitaries, distinguished people are all bowing. People who love Ein Mavafachad will immediately be overtaken by a sense of incredible fear and awe, seeing that everyone is bowing down. So here also, we have this, when you see the sun and the moon and the stars and everything is going towards the west, even if you don't see the king himself, you can still have Yira for Hashem just by seeing the bittul of all the heavenly host Hashem. So Pasha, looking at the sun and the moon, can be ma'ir to you into bittul. This taka story they say about Reb Zusha of Anapoli. Hey, look at Reb Zusha of Anapoli. It says that he once went out at night and he looked up at the stars, and he was overcome with such an incredible fright that had an incredible physical impact on him. He became physically ill. It's a nice story, right? What does that mean? Why did he get scared by looking at the stars? In other words, obviously he wasn't scared of the stars, he was scared of Hashem. So why did he have to go out and look at the stars? Why can't he sit in his room and think about Hashem and have that impact? But that's really the point that we're making over here. That sometimes you can't fear something without seeing it. But you could see one thing, and that leads you to fear something which you can't see. He looked at the stars. And yeah, he was able to sit in his room and think about the greatness of Hashem. But that wouldn't have had the impact on him as much as going out and being able to see something. And then that, when you see something, like seeing the king, even though you don't see the pnimius, that could lead to an incredible year. I remember, maybe I mentioned this once, I remember a few years ago, so President Obama he went through Crown Heights.
He did?
He drove through Crown Heights, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is the president?
He was the president then, yeah. He came to Brooklyn.
He drove through.
He drove 2 blocks away from my house.
But he didn't stop.
I didn't say he stopped, I said he drove through Crown Heights.
Yeah, but they put up the signs for
Rubashka,
Shalom.
all I said
They
was...
put him into that he couldn't see the sign.
All I said was that he drove through Crown Heights. That's all I said. That's all I said.
What's the point?
I actually was standing there and I was assuming that the car would stop and he'd come out and say hi to me, but he didn't. He just drove through. So I went with my family to see, it was Friday afternoon, it was like 3 hours before Shabbos.
Did you say a bracha?
I didn't say the bracha for reasons I'll get into soon. But I went to see. The reason why I went to see is because there's a halacha that there's a mitzvah to go see the kings of the nations of the world, so that when Mashiach comes and we see Melech HaMashiach, you'll be able to appreciate how much more kavod that Mashiach is going to get. So there's a mitzvah, ad kedei kach, that's brought on halacha, that a kohen is allowed to be mistama with us, a suffik tumah. He's allowed to go over, let's say, a beis hapras, or jump over a aron, which is only a tumah d'Rabbanan, in order to go see a goyish king. So I went with my family, and I did not see the president.
Who's inside?
They fly by so quick, the cars. It's a motorcade of around 30, 40 cars. And I think there's also like 2 cars, or maybe even 3 cars that look just like the same.
Yeah, Dami,
Right.
president inside, yeah.
So I went. I think my wife said she did see, and I think my daughter said she saw. I don't remember. There were definitely 1 or 2 people in my mishpacha who said they saw. I know for sure I didn't see the president. But I could tell you I didn't need to see the president. I mean, so that's why I didn't make a bracha. But the awesome sight of that 40-car motorcade, and the soldiers and the police and the ambulance and the trucks with all the equipment that's following, and the streets lined with people, that was enough to give you an incredible sense of awe. And again, I know I'm not getting into politics here. It's not about the person. It's about the position that he holds, whether you like him or you don't like him, which we're not going to get into right now. And that's mamish the same thing over here. Even if you don't see the king, but when you see the incredible respect and reverence and bowing that everyone does, you can so that's what Dr. Rebbe is saying over here. That when you look at the celestial bodies of the sun and the moon, etc., when you see they're all bowing to Hashem, that alone should be able to get you to fear Hashem. So let's back up a little. The first thing Dr. Rebbe said was that we can actually see Hashem. How? By just like you see when you look at a body, you see the soul. What you're really seeing is the life force. You look at the world, at everything. Then comes along Dr. Rebbe and says, and even if you can't see Hashem, you don't have to. You can have fear by seeing the sun and the moon bowing down to him. That alone itself can also give you fear. But now we're going to go back inside and we're going to return to the previous idea, which is the idea of the notion of being able to see Hashem within everything. Whatever you look around the world, whatever you see, you should see this only as an extension of Hashem. First says Alter Rebbe, you're telling me that I could look at the world and see Hashem, I could look at the table, I could look at this, I look at everything and see Hashem. But that's Hashem is wearing so many garments, He's so hidden within them. Says the Alter Rebbe, it makes no difference. There's absolutely no difference. When you're fearing a human king, whether he's naked, or whether he's wearing one article of clothing, or whether he's wearing many clothing, it makes no difference. You're going to visit a king, you're going to say, I didn't have that much fear from him because he was wearing an undershirt and a shirt and a jacket and a raincoat on top of it, so how am I supposed to fear him so much, all those clothing that he's wearing? The main thing is that you see the king. The same thing is also, it doesn't make a difference how many garments Hashem is wearing over here in this world. If it's Hashem inside, and if I can get myself used to seeing Hashem inside them, then I can fear Hashem.
You can even argue that the garments help you or add to the covenant.
That's true, but what does the Alter Rebbe say?
What does the Alter Rebbe say?
Look inside. What did we just read?
That despite the fact that he had this,
he said there's no difference between when he's naked or one. That's what he says. Otherwise, I would have said the same thing that you're saying. But apparently, when you're looking at the king, in terms of covet is one thing, but in terms of the Meira, if you know that it's the king, it doesn't make a difference. But what is the main thing? The main thing is hahergel. You hear Rabbi say, what is the main thing? Is the habit, getting used to. To get your mind used to constantly, that it should be ingrained in your heart and your mind constantly. That everything you see be'einav with your eyes, Hashemayim, the heavens, the earth, and the earth, ha'aretz, and the earth, and everything that's within it. They're all the levushim of Hashem. Everything is just hosting the life force of Hashem. They're all just our body to the neshama, and the neshama is Hashem. If you do this, Yiskar Tam, you'll always remember Al pnimiyusam v'chayusam. You'll always remember the inside of it, the pnimiyus and the chayus, which is Hashem. And this is something that we know, that there are people, we've all encountered people of such, that they see Hashem in everything and everywhere. Whatever they're seeing is nefloi saber. I remember once I was talking to a doctor, and he told me that he just doesn't understand. He was a Baal Tshuva, and he said, I don't understand how I went through medical school without believing in Hashem. I was saying, I don't get it. Here I was for 12 years, or whatever it was, studying the intricacies of the human body, the intricacies of Hashem's creation. And as we know, the Medrash says that if all the wise people in the world got together and decided they wanted to create a mosquito and put life into it, they couldn't do it. A mosquito. And that's all the wise people in the world combined. And they've been trying. And they can't. And here he's studying this most incredibly intricate, perfectly operating machine with trillions and trillions of cells that all work in harmony perfectly. And he's not thinking about Hashem. And he can even deny the existence of Hashem. And it was obvious in him that he was saying that now, every time that he looks at a person, what does he see? He sees Hashem. I'm not talking Chas v'Shalom in Avodah Zarah sense. That whenever you see something, what are you seeing? You're seeing the neflai. There are certain people, everything's neflai saber. Like you said, when you see incredible rain, and really that's what brachas, right? We're talking, and really that's what these brachas are supposed to remind us of that. And in every single thing, they're seeing chastei Hashem. They're seeing the kindness of Hashem in everything, and they're seeing the hashgacha pratis in everything. And I think that maybe for some people it's a little more natural than for others. But what Dr. Rebbe is saying over here is that is the avodah. You want to have yiras Hashem. The problem is that we can't see Hashem, as mentioned. But you could see Him. You could see Him in every event and in everything. It's just a matter of habituating yourself, of getting yourself used to seeing the way Hashem is in everything.
You can see all the meshartim of Hashem, all these aside.
That's something else. That's two different points. Again, one point is that you could look in the world and see how everything is simply Hashem's actions, Hashem's deeds, and Hashem's giving the life to everything. And so wherever you look, you see, even though again, you fear the king, even though you can't see the pnimius.
You see the garment.
You're seeing only the chitzoni, you're seeing the guf. The whole world is the guf. And what is the pnimius? The pnimius is Hashem. So you have to get used to looking at the entire world as only a guf, and as only the chitzonius, and the pnimius being Hashem. And it's such a wonderful midah to be able to do that. But it's not something which, as Dr. Rebbe says, it takes practice. It takes practice, that seeing Hashem in everything and everywhere.
Hergel. Exactly what he said.
Yeah. And v'zen nichal gamkein, 6 times from the bottom. V'zen nichal gamkein. This is also included b'lashon emunah, in the word emunah. Now emunah, you usually think of as belief. So belief, either I have it or I don't have it. Now, the problem is that if you're a Yid and you believe in Torah, then you know that you do have it. So if I do have it, why isn't it impacting me? We all have emunah, right? A Yid by definition has emunah. Says Alter Rebbe, there's another understanding of the word emunah also, as we mentioned once in class before. The word emunah is lashon hu lashon regilus, means to get used to something. Shemargil ha'adam es atzmai, a person Pashat gets into the habit of something, becomes habituated to something. Like a craftsman, how does a person become a craftsman? By practicing. So the word emunah, you want to have emunah, you have to practice. It's not something that either you have it or you don't. You do have it. But if you want it to impact you, you have to practice it. In other words, every one of us over here knows that Eined Movada, Atar is Lodas, right? Eined Movada, that everything is Hashem. What do you mean everything is Hashem? that everything is just a guf, and what is the neshama, what is the chayis within everything, and what is the one, who is the one who's recreating everything at every moment and giving everything its life is Hashem. We all know that. We all have that emunah. But for it to become practical in our lives, we have to become a uman. We have to become an expert and a craftsman. The only way to do that is by practicing. And practicing means getting used to Pasha, as we just mentioned, seeing Nefloi Sabira, seeing Hashkacha Pratis, seeing Chastei Hashem Pasha, seeing Hashem within everything.
So what's the difference between believing and knowing? You're saying you know there's Hashem, or you believe it? You're using the word emunah. I keep get confused between emunah and knowing.
And yediyah, right?
And yediyah, I like
Right.
that.
So over here we're having some sort of hybrid, which means every yid has emunah, which is something which is a point which we have to bring out also.
But you're trying to bring out the idea that you will know by the regulars here will come to a point.
We're trying to bring the emunah into das. That it should be something not only I believe, but that I know. And how's that? Through becoming a uman. In other words, how do I get my emunah to become real and part of and connected with me and das?
Believe if you don't know.
What makes you believe is that you have a neshama. And that's a very important point over here. Talking about a uman, talking about a craftsman. So different people have different crafts. So let's say a artist. So anyone who's a good artist, practice for many, many, many years. Let's take a musician. There's a famous musician. I believe his name was Pablo Casals. Cellist, very good. One of the most famous cellists. And when he was an older person, well into, 70s, 80s, 90s, and he was still practicing 6 hours a day. And they were asking him, what's that all about? And he says, if I miss one day, I notice. If I miss one day practice, I can tell the difference. If I miss 2 days practice, the people who I'm playing with can tell the difference. If I miss 3 days practice, the audience can also tell the difference. Now, this musician, he there's no question that it wasn't only the practice. He had a natural talent, a musical ear and a musical talent to him. You don't become who you are just if you have no ear for music. You can practice and practice and practice and set the gardener's talfin, right? Or as we spoke last time, 2 times ago, if you don't have an eye for art, you'll be drawing circles. Remember we spoke circles and triangles. You're not gonna. So you have to have the combination of the natural talent together with the practice. And the same thing is when it comes to a yid. The natural talent we all have, meaning what? We all intrinsically have emunah in Hashem. And as we mentioned earlier on in this page, we all have a Oitzer Yiras Shamayim, a treasure house of Yiras Shamayim that's hidden inside our heart due to the fact that we have this natural emunah in Hashem. But in order for it to express itself, you need a practice. So that's the two sides of emunah. On the one hand, we have the natural talent, like a craftsman has the natural talent. But at the same time, for that natural talent to play out in real life, it requires a lot of practice. And this is a real avodah. We're sitting here, we're going to spend one shir today on this, and then next week, Mr. Shem, we're moving on to new Perek Mem Gimel. But this is an avodah of a lifetime. The idea of getting oneself used to seeing Hashem within everything. Seeing Hashem everywhere. Shivisi Hashem l'negdi samid, which means it also means the Pasha, not only that I'm not seeing what I'm seeing and I'm seeing the world. You see Hashem within the world, within everything. Always looking for the Hashem. Always looking for the Yad Hashem within everything.
So
yes.
I'm sorry.
We also said we all have das inside of us. Is that connected? Is that we have emunah?
We have the capacity for all these things, and we draw down the emunah and becomes das. It's all interconnected. Yeah, Reuven. You wanted to add something? Okay.
No, I want to ask you. You're saying that every yid has an intrinsic. Every yid has a certain amount of emunah that's intrinsic to that. That's. How's it possible? Then why is some people not believers altogether? They're atheists. How's that possible? If everyone is born with emunah,
So it's not possible.
It's not possible. But the doctor says he never. Well, the doctor said he couldn't see it. But there are some people who don't believe in God, and they're big doctors.
Yidden, not Yidden. Talking about Goyim, you're talking about.
So
Yidden all believe in the
can't say
Eibishter.
what.
They might claim to be atheists. They might think that they're atheists, but it's not true.
If they don't have some knowledge past that, then you can, like your example, you went to medical school, nothing. Why not? There was no, he received no knowledge about godliness, about Torah, there's no education. It's Masorah.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, Emunah is part and parcel of what a Yid is. It's part of being a Yid. It's part of the Yiddish neshama, and every Yid has that. And some people are more estranged from that, and by some people it's hidden a little more. Some people takes a little more covering, uncovering of the earth and the dust and all the grime that's covering it. But that's the definition of a Yid. The definition of a Yid is a neshama, and this neshama believes in the Eibishter and wants to connect to the Eibishter and wants to learn Torah and do mitzvahs. That's the definition of a Yid. Everything else is externalities. That's the essence of what a Yid is.
But some people say they don't believe.
So don't believe them.
They don't believe.
Don't believe them.
They don't have knowledge.
Just for somebody, it said like a
How do you define that latent belief? How do you define that? If he doesn't show it, he goes to medical school and he
Doesn't take it away. It covers it. It buries it. Doesn't take it away.
This is natural.
You
That's
can't, even if you give a nickel,
Education.
you can't.
Yeah.
It takes away the.
Sure.
he said
Sure.
everyone's born
It's in you.
with latent belief. He says.
In you.
That's what he said.
There are many, over the years, there are many people who wrote to the Rebbe and told the Rebbe they don't believe in Hashem. I've seen many people wrote to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe would consistently write back to me. I've seen quite a few letters that the Rebbe says, that which you say that you don't believe in God.
I like that.
You're saying it.
It means that you're a liar.
That's not, you're not trying to lie, but it's you Taka might think so, but that's not true. That's not emes. It's the matter of you're not being in touch. You're not being in touch with yourself. You have some people that are convinced that they hate their children, for example. They get in the fight, I hate my child. It's shtusim. It's not true. It's not really true. The love is there, and Elama, it's hidden. It's hidden because there's a lot of baggage like that. It's there. It's there.
Rabbi, it's possible to have double emunah?
What do you mean by that?
My granddaughter, her name is Emunah.
So if you have two granddaughters with the name Emunah, then you have double Emunah.
Right now.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's her name. In Jersey.
4 lines in the bottom. The Gam. Moreover, Lies, Lizikar, and Tamid. One always has to remember. By the way, if you read these few lines again see how many times Dr. Rebbe uses the word Tamid, the last few lines. Tamid. It's an avoida. It's an avoida tmidis. Continuous avoida. Yeah. Yeah. Liis lizikar and tamid lashon chazal. That which Chazal tell us. Kabbalas oil malchus shemayim. So till now, we were talking about the idea of the contemplation, the different types of hisbaininus that a person can meditate upon, can contemplate upon in order to arrive at a Yiras Hashem. It says Dr. Rebbe, at the end of the day, don't forget that at the core of everything, it's not about the fear that you create in your mind through your hisbaininus, but it's about Kabbalas Oil Malchus Shemayim. Accepting the yoke of heaven, regardless of my feelings about it, regardless of my love, regardless even of my fear. I have to do what Hashem says. Shu Ke'inyan, this is similar to the idea of what it says in the Pasuk, Soyim Tasim Alech HaMelech. What does it mean, Soyim Tasim Alech HaMelech? To put a point upon yourself, a king. That means, and this is specifically referring to Hashem, that sometimes you're not feeling that Hashem is your king. You don't have that feeling in your heart. Soim Tasim, even then, you have to make him your king. You have to make him your king by doing what he says. Commissioner Zbarba Makamacher V'chulo is explained elsewhere. Ki HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as mentioned earlier in Perek Mem Aleph, Hashem meniach es elyonim v'tachtonim. He leaves behind the higher worlds, the lower worlds. Umiyachid malchusi aleinu v'chulo. And he designates his kingship over us. He wants to be our king. We accept him upon ourselves as our king. And this is the baseline. Because ultimately, the Alter Rebbe is saying, yes, we spoke a lot about different madrigas in Yiras Hashem and how to arrive at Yiras Hashem. But if my Yiras Hashem is because of my Yisboinus, is because of my understanding and because of my thinking that Hashem is the Ayin Roya and the Eizin Shemas and He's watching and all His greatness and everything, at the end of the day, how great is my fear going to be? It's going to be as great as my Yisboinus is today. And some days my Yisboinus will be better. Some days my Yisboinus will be weaker. And some days my Yisboinus won't do anything at all. I'll think and my heart will remain unresponsive. So therefore, we can never say, Yiras Hashem is through Yisboinus only. Yes, you're supposed to be Mizboinin to generate a Yiras Hashem, but there always has to be the baseline of Soim Tasam Allah Hamalach. There always has to be that baseline of Kabbalah soil. And as we explained also in Perek Mem Aleph, that's where the real Kedusha is. Because ultimately, if Kedusha is synonymous with Bittul, as we've spoken many, many times, that the Geder, the definition of Kedusha is something that's Batul to Hashem. Where is there greater Bittul to Hashem? In Yira or in Kabbalah soil? Yira means I feel in fear of Hashem, or Kabbalah soil means I don't feel in fear of Hashem, but I have this yoke upon me and I have to do what Hashem wants. Where is there greater Bittul? The greater Bittul is in Kabbalah soil. Because ultimately, when you have fear, you want to do what you're doing because you're acting out of fear. So you're following your instincts, you're following your emotions. Kabbalah says it's not about me at all. I'm doing it. Why? Because I was commanded to by Hashem and I have this yoke. And that's the ultimate bittul. So we can never forget that at the very core and root of everything is simple Kabbalah sel. This is the Kabbalistical deeper understanding of why we bow down to Hashem and Shemina Esrei. Achar Kabbalos El Malchus Shemayim B'dibur. After we verbally accept upon ourselves El Malchus Shemayim B'Kriyas Shema. We know that when we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, the idea of Shema is Kabbalos El Malchus Shemayim. What do we do right afterwards? We express that in action of Elachzir Elakabel B'Peil Mamish B'Maisa. We bow down B'Peil Mamish V'Chulu. Commission Nisbar B'Makam Machar is explained elsewhere. So the bowing down of Shemina Esrei is the ultimate idea of Kabbalah. So even though that I already was Mekabel Il Malchus Shemayim and Kriya Shema, and I already have the fear of heaven on me, at the end of the day, that's not enough. Now comes Shemina Esrei and I have to actually bow down to Hashem and actually express my Kabbalah sale in actions also. And with this we finish Perek Mem Beis, and in Hashem next year we'll move on to Perek Mem Gimel. Good Shabbos everyone.